We have this month for you a phenomenal topic. And I'm sure you have paid attention and maybe seen a little bit of change in LeTip's presence on social media and our brand. Yeah, you're seeing some things change. And a lot of you here have known him, but those of you who don't know Marcus, his passion for what he does exudes out of him in every single piece, from on the phone, online, in email. The man doesn't stop. He is so dedicated to what he does. There are times that I wonder how he works for anyone else because he is so laser focused in everything that he touches. And I want to share a little video with you really quick to kind of give you an intro as to what exactly Marcus can do. That is phenomenal when you look at exactly Sally Joe. Yeah, let's give him a round of applause. So Marcus, I want to say I am thankful to you for everything that you have done for LeTip. We are excited to have you. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to you. So take it away, please, Marcus.
Awesome. Well, howdy y'all. I'm happy to see this turnout. Wow, almost 30 people. So, you've met me either on Lunch Bunch at convention, or you've seen some of my work through social media in terms of its branding, the visuals, the messaging, and in regards to the engagement. That's super important. So, today's call is all about, I'm probably going to touch upon a lot of things that maybe you already know, but it's sort of that nagging voice. Like, if you know it, then why aren't you using it? But at the same time, too, it's gonna be a volley because my most important how I educate is through one-on-one, right? I think we're the majority of us here are visual learners, and I'm gonna go through my spiel in terms of the slides, kind of educating you on what a brand is, kind of bringing it all together, and then ultimately, answering a lot of questions because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. My goal today sort of scratch the surface and help you understand on what a brand is, because I think today a brand has the word branding or brand has become so prevalent and almost watered down because now the other day I had a photo session with my photographer. She says, "Oh, it's a branding photo session." I said, I'm just curious because I kind of dabble in that world. What is a branding photo session?" And I was actually really impressed by her response. She goes, "Well, it's part of your storytelling. It's part of helping me capture the moments of you so I can be able to help you tell your story." I said, "Wow, that's spot on." I asked another person, it's like, "Well, it's the hot buzzword, and that's what we have to use these days." And so let me share my screen. I'll start with sort of a presentation, and then we'll go into a question. So just a quick insight. My name is Marcus Akart. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I come from the New York agency world. I worked in New York, Texas, with agencies such as Avenue A, Razorfish, Droga 5. A lot of my work you may have seen. If you're in New York, Seattle Coffee or Cafe, I've done work with them. Jay-Z's 40/40 Club, when Martha Stewart was in The Apprentice, all the signage and billboards on 42nd Street, my team did that. And we worked a lot with Fashion Week out of New York. So that's a quick little insight to me. But my true bread and butter is helping solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, startups, because your message, your story is the best. So let me share my screen here real quick. Can everyone see the screen that says, "What is a brand"?
Yes.
So I'm gonna open up the floor immediately to this. What is a brand? So does anybody want to volunteer? I want three different sort of answers. Greg, what is a brand to you?
Hey, let me give that a little thought here. Somebody else can easily jump in.
Sure. Carl, what is a brand to you?
It's a direction of I want to say the word lifestyle is in that. It's an identity for what you're trying to portray to your potential clients. So it's that lifestyle that they want to see. I don't know if lifestyle is the right word, but that's the word that keeps going in my head.
Okay, fantastic. Mandy, what is a brand to you?
First thing that comes to mind, a vibe.
Okay. And then Jack, what is a brand to you?
I was thinking it's kind of the beginning of the sales journey of that you want to take someone down. So the brand is almost like a sign that you say, "Hey, come down this pathway." So how do you get people to take that journey?
Awesome. And Demetrius, he raised his hand. What is a brand to you, Dimitri?
I I think there is brand and branding, and these are two quite different things to me. So the brand itself is a name, a logo, an image, etc. But branding are everything that you associate with that. So whether it's reliability, professionalism, or an idea of a bright future, all these are associations. So I feel like branding are all the things we associate with a brand, and I believe that that's the main focus of today, but I'm not sure.
Okay, fantastic. And then D, you raise your hand.
Yeah, so what I would say is everything that Dimitri said, and I would add something that's unique to you, brand that's you. So that is the brand for me.
That's awesome. And then John.
It's your impression. What impression are you leaving on people? And I love what Demetrius said because it's more encompassing the whole thing. But it is, if it was just was a brand, it's your impression. What impression are you leaving?
So I have a big smile on my face because all of these answers are correct. All of these touch upon the brand and the brand experience or branding. Dimitri sort of hit it on the nail in the sense that, you know, brand and branding. Brand is the presence, branding is the act of. But all of these answers, none of these are incorrect. And that's ultimately what I wanted to get to. And let me see here. Okay, there we go. So most people think that a brand is your story. It's how you advertise. It's your print collateral or your identity in terms of your, you know, your letterhead, your envelope, your business card, you know, your logo, your identity, your website marketing, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things encompass the brand and the brand experience because all of these play a crucial factor into its delivery method in regards to your brand. So ultimately for us, what we've sort of narrowed it down to is a true brand is a movement. The movement, let me see if I can move this thing around. A movement is the process of moving people or things from one place or position to another. So ultimately, you know, you're going to see here listed as not A, B, C, D, but KISS. You know, number one, a brand should move people mentally. You know, it should sort of leave an impression on you. A brand should move your spirit. It should create an impulse within you. A brand should move you to act, you know, call to actions. A brand should make you consider or reconsider your current position. If you look at the competition, both indirect and direct, you're going to realize that your position may either be in a solid place or it needs to adjust itself. Now, what is KISS? KISS is a principle we use in design and marketing. It's called keep it simple, silly. I changed it to silly. It normally says stupid, but I don't want to offend anybody here on this call. But yeah, keep it simple, silly. And it's a principle that states that most systems work best if they are kept simple rather than made complicated. Therefore, simplicity should always be a key goal in your design, and unnecessary complexity should be avoided. And that's both in messaging and visuals, verbal, etc. Now, here's a quick case study that sort of, well, not sort of, that it does embody the KISS principle. Everyone here is a coffee drinker. I'm not sure if you're a Starbucks fan or not, but obviously you know of the brand Starbucks. Some people might be Dunkin' Donuts fans, won't hold that against you. But Starbucks is a great example of a case study because throughout the years, they've shown us the journey, and then they finally culminated to this presence where it's less is more. And in the beginning, it started out in Seattle as this coffee, tea, and spices company. Along that journey, one of the partners left and they went to Italy to sort of live this sort of eat, pray, love lifestyle. And when they came back, they saw that the cafe lifestyle in Italy, there was no cafe. Today, it's sort of a norm. But at the time in the 80s, there was no sort of cafe experience. So he created a brand called Il Giornale, which means the newspaper, or the news cafe stand. So you brought that Italian experience here. The Starbucks former, partners said, "Oh my God, this guy's doing this. We got to bring him back into the fold." And together in 1987 became the Starbucks brand that we know of today. Throughout the years, they kept refining their process. They went from gradients and, multicolors and too much detail to a simplified form in 1992, and it stayed as such until 2011. And then today, it's very rare that you see the actual word mark. Starbucks is actually now just the icon of that mermaid woman in a cropped format. What are the key takeaways here? They were inspired by regional culture and its people. They combined the brand experience and goods. They adjusted to the times and technology. And of course, they embraced the KISS principle. And they adhere to something that we use internally all the time. It's a rules that we constantly remind ourselves. It's called the triple C rule: composition, consistency, and cohesiveness. Your composition, your brand identity must always feel balanced and contain a main focal point. If you look at social media and the logo appears, you can't see the details. You can't even see what it references. A great logo should work a centimeter tall all the way to billboard size. It should always be consistent. Which leads me to consistency. It's a uniformity in its application and does not lead to contradiction or a break in the follow through. That story, that chain link should always be consistent. And lastly, cohesiveness, the creation of unison, the ability to unite, create understanding, and lead to the overall big picture. So now we're going to apply that same case study to today with LeTip and its evolution. 1978, they started. As a Ken Peterson. I'm sorry, I had that research. The original founder of LeTip. Summer.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Steve. So Ken Peterson started in 1978 with his colleagues in San Diego, California, and they started LeTip. The original logo was flat. It had a very vibrant colors, but it was always presented in sort of badge sort of format. 30 years later, LeTip sort of evolved its look and feel to encompass, the trends at the time. A lot of drop shadows, gradients, not my personal favorite. But they knew they had to evolve because obviously the organization has grown tremendously at that time. And then in 2017, 9 years later, they started implementing new colors and a new approach to the logo where they paid homage to their foundation date, which is 1978. Fast forward today, 7 years later, our goal at Forager, when we got that knock on the door from LeTip that, hey, it's time to sort of, it's time to change the message because that message from 1978 is no longer the same today. So we decided to transition from the serif approach. Serifs are like typefaces or fonts like Times New Roman, Garamond, Adobe Caslon, etc. We went to a serif or a sans serif approach like Helvetica, Arial, Impact, typography that has less ligature. Why? We wanted it to be bold. We still wanted to incorporate the colors from the past, but this time around, especially since technology is a big forefront in today's LeTip, we created different alternate versions of the logo. So the logo system has its clean approach and all the way to its new dynamic approach. That sliced circle that you see there, that's meant to represent not only the vibrancy and energy of LeTip, but those lines within that logo mark, especially when it's used on the digital and social platform, none of those lines are the same. And that's meant to represent its members, the diversity and the inclusion that we have as an organization that welcomes that diversity, not only in its people, but in the types of businesses we welcome. Our main key takeaways here, as I mentioned, in terms of this brand evolution, we're inspired by diversity, inclusion, technology, and energy, combining action words and a bolder presence, an homage to its original colors, and still keeping that vibrancy from its original foundation, embracing the KISS principle and adhering to the triple C rule. Now, once you develop, you adhere to these rules, or you make, you sort of create your own amalgamation based on these rules and principles. How do you use your brand? What are the keys to utilizing your KISS style brand? You're keeping it simple brand where your audience can engage and embrace your message. And that's 3 words. It comes down to narrative, education, and culture. Your narrative, the simple definition of it is a story or the art of storytelling in a particular way of explaining or understanding events, explaining, supposedly true experience intended to support a particular viewpoint or thesis, true or fictitious. Now, within our triple C rule, composition, make sure that within your narrative, there's always a sense of hierarchy. Have you ever read a caption or content where there is no sense of weight, there is no sense of hierarchy? It all is read the same. There's no call outs. There's nothing that leads to a call to action. These are super important within your narrative. What is your slogan? Do you have a slogan? Do you have a tagline? What is the ultimate message? What is that key takeaway that when they embrace your brand and you make that first impression, what is the slogan? What is the message you're constantly trying to live through? And then lastly, in terms of cohesiveness, remember all of these pieces are part of your ultimate story. They're chapters. If your chapters don't lead up to the final sort of conclusion or, don't lend to its introduction, then the story gets broken. And once a story gets broken, that impression, you start to lose that connectivity. And losing connectivity will make it could cause your business to suffer because now you're losing on that first impression and you're losing on that momentum or that, movement that we discussed earlier. Education, 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 education. A big part of what we do at Forgers before we deliver any sort of executionable, like executed items is education. We research, and then we educate the client so they better understand their demographic and target audience, and we help create that bridge. It's a song and dance between the two of us, and together we build that bridge that creates the ultimate connection and engagement with your target audience. Education never stops. You finish school, but you're always hungry for more. You're reading, you're immersing yourself in new experiences, and through your education with your brand, you have to be able to deliver your message with immediate and accessible access points. What is that? It could be your social media, it could be your website, and it could be all your other marketing tools. Do you have a great CRM system? Do you have newsletters? That leads me to the next item. What is the best consistent delivery method? After you implement all these other sort of tools, do you have a newsletter or a subscription sort of model or campaign that's constantly getting the message out? Just because you have a social media and a website, you need fresh new content that's constantly getting the education and the narrative out there. And then ultimately, based on all of that, how are you following up based on those educational assets you've created? Do you have a great follow-up system? Are you using something like, Calendly or, other or your CRMs, great CRMs can make or break a great business in terms of your follow-up. Let's see here. Culture. Now, this is the most important because the culture ties everything in all together. You've carved out a fantastic narrative and storyline when it comes to you and your business, why you're so different. You've created all the educational assets to be able to deliver that narrative. But then the culture is what ties it all together. The culture is your promise. The culture is your guarantee. The culture, your brand culture is the unifying piece, the glue to it all, because through your culture, you create the buy-in. Through your culture, you create the promise. Through your culture, you create the first impression that now has become the lasting impression. So for example, how are you perceived? Are you a must-have business or brand? Are you a funny brand that when I come to your page or your social media, it uplifts me? Are you a serious brand that without this brand, I can't live without? Are you an asset or a go-to resource? Like I need this brand or this organization to help me function in life, not only as a person, but as a business owner or professional. Your message and position, it must be shared and made evident every time in every medium. I know everyone here struggles with social media. Heck, we do too internally, but it's super important to use your delivery methods to constantly get the word out in regards to your education, your story, and how that impression you've made is an important impression because it's either, as we listed above, it's a must-have, it's a go-to resource, or it's something that helps my day get by. And then lastly, how do you unify it all? How do you bring that message and what you offer all the way in? Is it through events? You know, I know there's an event planner here. Is it through your webinars? Is it through some sort of shared platform where you're sharing your skills and resources to constantly educate? There's so many tools out there these days. So once you built the foundation, you can only build up from there, and you have to figure out, you know, those delivery methods that work best for you. And how do you determine what are those delivery methods? It's through your algorithms, your insight reports, through social media, it's through your analytics, through your website. And it's through that good old fashioned one-on-one when you're speaking to clients and they leave that Google review, or if they haven't, you want that Google review, because that insight report from actual people helps your brand evolve or continue to evolve, and therefore. So these are some quick sort of takeaways from everything. These are 8 ways that branding increases your sales. You know, number 1, proper branding sets you apart from competition. Creating trust through consistency. Trust is value. Consumers make purchases based on trust. Branding impacts your first impressions. Great branding builds and maintains consumer loyalty. Your brand loyalty improves engagement and acquisitions. Branding inspires your call to actions and impulse purchases and actions. And lastly, brands allow your demographic to create emotional connections. For those of us that were in convention, you know, we had the privilege of hearing Hassan Bosch speak, and one of the main takeaways that he implemented and shared with us is connections. You know, that one-on-one engagement, that follow-up, that follow-through. Connections is super important. And lastly, you know, sometimes you hear of a brand and it feels like such a faceless thing. But ultimately, a brand can't succeed without you. If you're the leaderhead, you're the figurehead, you're the CEO, the founder, especially, you know, your brand does not exist without you. So something that we've, you know, created internally is the word unique. Not, you know, spelling it the traditional way with the letter U, but YOU, because you're a big part of your brand. You know, let's face it, there's a lot of competition in your respective industries. How many financial advisors are there within LeTip? How many real estate, you know, professionals are there within LeTip? And the reason they're able to succeed and, you know, carve out their own niche or get their own slice of the pie is because of them. That particular individual is what makes their efforts and how they represent their organization truly unique. You know, and we need to celebrate that. There is no brand without a core group of people and passionate and driven leaders and founders. You are the one who inspires, shares that knowledge, uplifts, and brings smiles, laughter, and hope to others. And you know, I want to make sure that today, after, you know, we go through this Q&A, that you're ready to discover your true version of you and your brand. And I want to start that journey with you today. So with that said, I'll start opening up the floor to questions, and, you know, leaving everyone here enlightened, or at least, you know, if you've kind of bullet pointed these items, put it on your list, on your task list, to help you feel that, you know, affirm you and acknowledge you, to know that you're on the right track, and make sure that these things you've written out, that you've now manifested onto paper, that you now put an action plan, you know, next to it.